wanted the how we'd say the foundation model. We're talking now about foundation models in artificial intelligence, but I would say homo economicus is a kind of foundation model in economic thinking and then in economic practice that states the assumption of this economic model of homo economicus is that it is
Welcome everyone to the Actionable ESG Talks series brought to you by AKFI Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry consortium committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I'm the co-host of this talk series here with Manuel, another co-host, and our special guest today, Nicoleta. Hello, great to see you.
Isabella.
Hello, Nicoleta. Great to see you too.
And thanks to this talk series, we get to connect with great minds from everywhere in the world to discuss the current state and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. A little bit about Dr. Nicoleta. She is an economist, theologian, and independent expert, consultant, and evaluator working in Switzerland. She holds a PhD from the Swiss Graduate School of Public Administration. She has led projects at Princeton University at the intersection of faith and work. And now she's working as an expert in faith-based impact investment metrics, focusing on religion/spiritual-based motivations and behaviors, altruism, and workplace changes from the introduction of artificial intelligence, AI. Thank you very much, Nicoleta, for taking the time. And she's also a very well known published author. She has several books, publications published. And to start our conversation today, we'd like to talk about how to map sustainable finance, SDG, ESG, and faith-based investment. Love to know, how did the concept of sustainable finance originate?
Thank you so much, Isabella and Manuel, for having me and to offer me the chance to offer insights on my research and work on a topic that it's actually crucial, but it was always crucial. The difference is that today, because of the negative impacts of an unsustainable economy, we are forced to take action and to recognizing, to acknowledge that there is something in our models, economic models, financial models, that we really have to change. And actually, this is related to my own experience. I started my career as a banker after I did economics, and I was quite surprised to see the gap between what theory says and assumptions in theoretical economic models and the behavior of real people, business people who really make economy. I think for this banking, it's quite privileged because it is the heart of an economy. Everything goes in and goes out through banks, and you can kind of feel the pulse of that economy and how well it's doing. And I was surprised by the gap between theory and reality. And even recently, we have seen articles in New York Times, in The Economist, and in other prestigious newspapers and journals about the problem with the economic models, that they are not sustainable, but they are not sustainable. And now we realize because the basic assumptions they work with were just wrong. That's and to be short and to give an example to your audience, it is the model of homo economicus, which is actually, it's not any model. It is, if you wanted, the how we'd say the foundation model. We're talking now about foundation models in artificial intelligence, but I would say homo economicus is a kind of foundation model in economic thinking and then an economic practice that states the assumption of this economic model of homo economicus is that it is self-interest. It is an egoistic model of human nature, only maximizing personal interest and benefits. The second would be the desire always to have more. So the accumulation assumption and the maximization of benefits with the minimization of cost. The third would be the aversion for labor. It is one of the aversion of labor. It makes the assumption that people don't like to work. So you start with this idea: people don't like to work, that they will do everything and to not work, and then the consequences of this assumption is that people need incentives to work, and then you think what kind of incentives and rewards. And the fourth, it is the fact that people prefer instant gratification, compared to a delayed one. So instant gratification of and satisfaction of immediate pleasures. Or the reality shows that any of these assumptions is correct. Now, recently, in the last 10 years, we have behavioral economics stating that a human being is not necessarily self-interest. He can also behave prosocially and even altruistically. We have research showing that actually people love to work. They don't necessarily, there's not that assumption of aversion of work, which it's true. People love work. They want to invest in something. They want to feel competent and to do things. And also regarding instant gratification, it shows that actually, and here is neuroscience that bring the proof that actually our brain is made to prefer delayed but greater gratification than instant and less gratification. So in a way, we are made up to take the decisions long term and to delay, while these assumptions had what I call a performative impact on human behavior. It means if you say to somebody, you are like that, even that person is not like that, it will end by behaving as it is told, mainly because of also I would say propaganda, say, oh, a smart choice, a smart decisions, and so on. And this kind of smartness that is attached to this kind of behaviors make people willing to adopt them, while most of the time might be actually not benefiting them, but having a negative impact. Yeah. So from the beginning, I think economic models were not based on sustainable principles and respecting the human nature. So the sustainable development movement, it is only a consequences, I would say, of the impacts, the negative impacts we have seen on economies because of all these assumptions that were wrong, the maximization, the profit seeking, and was definitely not a good choice. And as we see now, the need to include other kind of variables in our models, like environment, the climate, the social, the governance, the ESGs themselves are a proof that economic models and therefore financial models need more variables than just return on investment or profit seeking or margin or whatever we consider economic growth. And this is clearly a consequences of these models that we need to change them. So sustainable development, now it is a priority, and it became a movement, I would say, in the last decades. And thank God we have now lots of tools actually and frameworks that can guide this kind of decisions, sustainable decisions, I would say. We have the SDGs by the United Nations. We have all these flourishing like mushrooms of ESGs, all kind of ESGs criteria, with the benefits, also the kind of the risks we have seen with the greenwashing. But we have them. I mean, that shows a sensitivity, higher sensitivity to this to this phenomenon. And along with sustainable development, we have of course the problem of financing sustainable development, which this gave rise to sustainable finance. So how we do we understood actually that we can't have sustainable development without sustainable finance, and we also need to fund this sustainable development. Of course, this might seem recent from most of us, but in reality, as an economist, but also as a theologian, which I studied Holy Scriptures quite in depth in original language in Greek. For example, I studied the New Testament and the Old Testament in Hebrew. You can see that these sustainable basic principles of human behavior at individual and collective level are there in sacred texts, are already there. So we can see that sustainable development is already in sacred texts, and this is true not only for Christianity, but and not only for Abrahamic faiths, Judaism and Islam, but also in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in major religions of the world. We see this care for the creation and for the human, and the development of the human and the accomplishment of the human in harmony with the universe. So we have these principles already there, and along with this theogony, if we want to say, of how and cosmogony that we find in these religions, we have also principles regarding the use of money and the use of land and the use of the creation in general, the respect, what is the relationship between the human being and the nature, what is the relationship between the human and the other human, which we call today social, impact. So these are already in the sacred text, and they're practiced actually. And there is the interest in faith-based investment, because actually sustainable finance based on faith and religious values goes back to 19th century, at least, to be more precise, but it existed in all religions since they appeared. And we have proofs of that, and we have seen that religious community organized around these principles, and they applied them. It has a long story, sustainable finance, and it was made by faiths.
Thank you. And you're sending me searching so many directions. I'll start with the beginning, and I will say that maybe economists also have to study psychology, because, for instance, mindfulness and the search of meaning seems to be intrinsically human, and cross religions, cross beliefs. The belief of self-sacrifice, which is at least in the religious text I know, there is always a self-sacrifice for a social, in modern talk, a social being, a social community being. And so it looks like economists and psychologists have to meet and discuss this. The other one, you brought the materiality, and I think the EC regulation, it's coming very soon, or came already, with double materiality. So it is the end of single focus, 50 years old kind of dictum that everything is about shareholders and self-interest. I think it's proof that it's not working. It's proof that it's not working with ESG. It's proof it's not working with sustainability. And really, we're at the point where the environment tells us, the planet tells us it's not working. We need to do something. So, It's
Yeah.
so maybe
Actually,
let's stay with economics. How is double materiality reflected in faith, in religion, and so on, in this connection between economics, social, and of course governance?
yeah, I will come back to your question, but I'd like to go back a little bit to what I said about the economists needed to study psychology. Actually, economic science was one with philosophy until the beginning of 20th century, it was not separate, was not the economics. We call Adam Smith the father of the economic science, but he was a philosopher, actually. It's only later with David Ricardo that we kind of get away from the philosophical background of economics, and we go more on a technical side of economics, because David Ricardo he was trained in a stock exchange, and he started very lately to be interested in economic science per se. He was working in stock exchange, while Adam Smith, he was a philosopher, and he wrote actually 2 books, The Wealth of Nations, and it is for this book that he was considered the father of the economic science. But actually, for him, his most important book was The Theory of Moral Sentiments, which actually it's not even in the curriculum of economic schools, or it is just mentioned very quickly, and it is not really studied. Well, I think that should be included, because we would have a different perspective on already Adam Smith's approach. And this is true also for John Stuart Mill, which is considered like the father of utilitarianism. But the utilitarianism, as proposed by John Stuart Mill, has nothing to do with what we have later in the 20th century, and mainly with all the economic and mathematical models based on utility functions. So we are very, very, very far, because these economists, these philosophers, they're aware that the reality of human existence cannot be limited to a formula, to an equation. Even John Stuart Mill, he says at a certain point, we choose to focus on describing economic behavior as the desire for wealth, and we keep just this unique variable as reflective of the economic behavior of the human being, not because we think that this is the human nature and human beings are like that, just like that. It is because it is easy to measure it. So it was actually a technical constraint that at that moment chose to focus on these measurable aspects of the economic behavior. But these economies, they're aware that human being cannot be limited, and human society cannot be limited to that. The problem is that later this philosophical background and ground was lost, and we focused only on the mathematical part, on the measurable part, and let aside what was not being able to measure. So that was one of the, and now we are coming back, and you are right to say, because now economists are interested in sociology, in psychology, in behavioral science, in neuroscience. There is now neuroeconomics. So we finally opened to social science, and it was at the beginning, actually. It was at the beginning, it was with social science together. Yes.
So if we cannot compute it, we cannot factor it in, we cannot optimize, maximize, minimize, apply all these theoretical models from math. But you brought me back to the sort of the behavioral economics school. I think was Chicago that started a couple of decades ago, right?
Yes, exactly. But what I think it is very important now to understand, and I think the conclusion of this is that we really need to change the economic models and financial models we work with. It's not just adding things and to kind of introduce, so we introduce the social dimension and we introduce the environmental dimension. That would not work, for the simple reason that if the assumption the basic assumption it's the same, that will not have the expected result. That's the point. So if we still work on a utility function where we maximize only the return of investment, and then we add variables that are determined for this, and at a certain point we include social and environmental variables, we will make condition these variables from outcome, from output, while it should be the opposite. Actually, we should have social variables, environmental variables as outcomes, and money as a determinant of that. So this is would be the reverse, actually, and this is the right use of money. Actually, it's not people working for money, but money working for people. It's not environment and nature working for money, but money working for environment and nature, and so on. It's a reverse relationship, and that's why I think, and actually faiths have done that. So fundamentally, in their approach of that, they have put human being and creation first, and all the other resources used to allow that human flourishing or human development in according to the religious principles, whatever they were. But we had this relationship where the creation and the money and the resources that are used to this finality.
So you're describing almost money as a social tool, a social relation tool, a measurement of the social relations, not only simply, transactional money to acquire as you mentioned at the beginning, the principle of acquisition. And I think that's where faith comes in. Am I correct in asking that?
Absolutely. And this allows me to tell you also the opposite, because often religion, spirituality are considered like non-economic or non-financial phenomena, while they are. So both money has it's not only economic and a financial tool, but it is also part of a spiritual or religious or a faith growth and development. And on the other side, also faith, having a faith and spirituality, it's not non-economic or non-financial, because it is about transformation. Either it's personal transformation of or institutions, how they transform the world consistent with their religious principles and values. It's about transformation, and transformation of the world means use of money, use of resources. So both, we can say, they take the characteristics of the other field, and I think we need to work more on that, because this is not clear for everyone yet.
No, definitely. And you already brought forward a different image about money, because, for instance, and we already mentioned, until now, the economic model, the fundamental capitalist, shareholder capitalism, is based on maximizing profits. And as you mentioned already, this is about self-interest. It's unidimensional. You measure only on financial terms of pecuniary terms, right, on money. And actually, it's easy to compute it, but it's only a partial representation of the social relations.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how we explain. So this I'm working on metrics. So, and this is how we can explain why we choose now, and we have many ways to measure environmental impact. It's easy to measure. You have carbon emissions, or this is very easy to measure. And that's why people in the E, you have ECGs, and the E, it's the most developed. Actually, it's more than 90%. And we see the difficulty to measure social impact and governance impact. It's exactly that. And that's why there is a hesitation, because we do not have still enough research to provide reliable and valid measurements and standardize, which we can standardize, and that means we can compare between various actors. So we are still in a period where this field is nascent. We need more data. We need more work with good data, we say, because the problem for the moment is we would say, oh, we have lots of data, yeah, but we do not have the good data, the right data. It is all mixed up, and I would say also we do not yet have a clear theoretical approach. Hence the confusion. Everyone is having his own metrics and his own measures at a certain point, and they are not always scientifically based, or they are too flu, not enough precise, so hence not reliable and not valid. So reliability and validity are two criteria for a metric to be taken into account as a sure metric, as something that we can base upon our evaluations.
I'll go sort of on a tangent here, diverge a little bit from the discussion, but it's sort of interesting that without a strong numerical mathematical apparatus, we develop things like artificial intelligence, GPT, this kind of technologies, which seems to understand humans better than the mathematical models we have in economics, let's say. And we don't have really mathematical models to describe our brain. We don't have mathematical models to describe social relations. Governance, definitely nothing there. We can't, maybe diversity and inclusion or some very superficial factors. So it seems like we're going around the math at this point. More with the technology seems to overshoot the mathematical models.
I love it. I love that. Yeah, that's true in the sense that actually in all these artificial intelligence models, what happens, it is we base this on path findings and on correlations. And of course, at a certain point, when you have very large databases, that will find the true trends, if you want, which is normal. When you work with data, you know that at a certain point, when you have large data sets, you are able through exploratory methods to find the real patterns behind. And that's why they reflect better the reality. This is one thing. And if we compare with the economic models that are designed and conceived at the end of the 19th century by the Enlightenment philosophical movement, that was more based on philosophical and sociological understanding of the human being at that time. So that's why we have, on one side, we have more a theoretical approach of the human being, a philosophical one, and on the other one, we have a more empirical driven perspective. In reality, we need both, because both can go biased. Data also needs to be controlled, because we see the problems today based only on data. Okay? It reflects the bias of the society. It's amplifying, it's magnifying the problems we have, and this is not what we want. So we also have to be careful on that. Most of the problem, what I see when we work with data, is that of course we don't work with clean data. Huh? It's all garbage. The expression garbage in, garbage out. So,
but Nicoleta, I think Isabella is working on the second volume of her book, The Digital Mind of Today, which will be the follow-up of Digital Mind of Tomorrow. But I think what's happening here, it's really we blame not blame, but we criticize the data. We analyze the data, but the data is just our mirror.
Yeah.
What we see, it's our mirror. We see ourselves, and we say, well, the person behind the mirror is the one that it's incorrect or but in reality it's just a mirror of our society. And yes, maybe it amplifies certain things. Maybe it's not a perfect mirror, but definitely it's a mirror. So I think we have to go back and reflect, as you said, philosophically, morally, ethically, religiously, faith, on human society. We see what we are, and we say,
Yeah.
oh, we don't like it.